Hello everybody, welcome, welcome. It is so good to be here with you. Let me just move my camera over a little bit. I think it's shifted. It is so good to see everybody. Welcome, welcome. It feels like a very long time since we streamed together and since we've been in this place together, and that is because it has been a long time. We last had the live stream the last week of March, and it is now the third week of April. I don't know how we have gotten here. It has been insane. I have lots to share with you today, and I think we'll sort of have to strap in for a little bit of a longer show today just because it's been a while, and I won't be chatting with you guys again for another 2 weeks, the first week in May. So we're sort of trying to juggle all the things. Rebecca, of course, was here last week with you guys for the Wool Circle, and she will be back next week with you guys for the Wool Circle. As usual and as normal, before we begin, if you are newer here and you are newer to, and you're a little bit unsure, oh my goodness, of course, the yard service showed up right at this moment. So I hope that it's not too loud. I hope you guys are able to hear okay. It is quite loud on my end. Regardless, if you are new here and if you're a little bit unsure about where to find everything and how everything kind of fits together, there are 2 links right down below that will help you. So the Start Here guide walks you through how the community works and where people usually begin. And then Ketchup and Pickles is our monthly newsletter, and it has everything in it that's released throughout the month and what's coming up. So think about it sort of as a newsletter, like I said. If you are already familiar with everything here, there is nothing for you to do. You just need to sit back and relax and enjoy. And thank you for being here and for being on this journey with me of making and celebrating creativity and celebrating our little slice of heaven here at Wool and Spinning. It really feels like a really sort of lovely corner of the internet. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for supporting the work that we do here. This month has been a complete and total blur. I have been working every day on my Charkha, which is this box here in the other camera here. It's right over here. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that today. I did start a new spin over there in the corner. The first of 3 skeins is done, so we'll chat about that a little bit. But what we're going to spend most of today chatting about is actually my finished knits, which are behind me. And I just realized I left one of them upstairs, but we've got photos, so we don't have to have it. It has been a complete and total blur this last month. There has just been a lot going on, mostly because the spring soccer season is up and running, and it is always a sprint. It is not a marathon like the fall and winter season is. The spring truly is a sprint. So there's been a lot going on in the background. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you, let me just switch cameras. This past Sunday, so I'm going to move over a little bit. I'm going to just sit kind of on the edge of my seat here so you can see the photos. This past weekend on Sunday, for those of you who are familiar, there is a 10-kilometer sun run that happens every year in April, and it's a big Vancouver event. There's tens of thousands of people that show up to run it. This year there was just shy of 50,000 people. I actually feel like there was maybe it was just shy of 40,000. It's still an unbelievable number of people. Anyhow, my friend Vicky and I, who's my lifting partner, her and I did it together. We're kind of like gym bros, and we did it together. She was coming off of a really bad back injury. I'd been sick all of March. We had both completely fallen off the wagon with our training, which was actually really a bummer because we had really high hopes for the run. But we went super slow, and she pulled ahead of me toward the end because she's a little bit faster than me. She's taller than me, and her stride is longer. She's a really good runner, and but we had a really good time. So this is us here at the end line after we had finished. I really needed to eat, and I said to her as we were walking into the BC Place where they have all of the, they have like an expo afterwards. I was like, I need a juice box and I need a banana. And she's like, I'm on it. And she like went and just fired through the crowd and got it all for me. So that was really lovely. So it's always fun to share with you guys a little bit about what's going on in sort of regular real life. And it was a lot of fun. We had beautiful weather. It was 20 degrees Celsius when we finished, and so it was hot. I had put on sunscreen in the morning, thank goodness, because it would have gotten even, like, I probably would have felt not so great. And yeah, we just had a great day. So that was really fun. Before we move into the actual show itself, one quick thing, Woolen Spinning Radio. I had somebody ask me about it yesterday and I wanted to just mention, Aaron Goulet in a part 1 was on the Woolen Spinning Radio show this month, and he's sharing about shearing with us, which we haven't had anybody on Woolen Spinning Radio or even on the podcast talking specifically about that stage of the process. It was such a pleasure to have him on the show. He is, of course, Melissa Goulet's husband of Melly Knits, and he does a lot for them. So for Melly Knits, I mean, he's a huge active role in the business, but he has this whole other side hustle that he does for shearing outside of his career, and it was a pleasure to have him on. Part 2 will be released May 1st, so fear not, it is coming soon, and it was so wonderful to have him on the show. So thank you to Aaron for joining us. And that is linked down below, but you can catch Woolen Spinning Radio wherever you get your audio podcasts, so Spotify, iTunes, etc. All right, I think what we'll do today is start with what I've been spinning and what I've been working on, because I've been really enjoying it, and it's come out of sort of this feeling that I had at the end of March, probably for the last couple of weeks of March and then into April, where I just felt like I couldn't focus on anything and I just couldn't get into anything. And that was the whole reason for talking about this sort of post-project drift that can sometimes happen. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I want to welcome everybody who's in chat because you guys are already very busy. It is so good to welcome Ellen and Eve, and Dagmar is here. And of course, Rebecca, welcome, welcome. Alberto, Glenda, who else is here? I'm going to miss people. I'm so sorry, you guys. Linda, it's so good to see you. She is quilting up a storm. Rebecca's mom, Jared, is here as well, which is lovely. Hello, Linda. Who else is here? Dion, so good to see you. Dion, I hope you're feeling better. And Colleen and Christine, and I'm sure I'm missing people. I am so sorry. Maria is here. Nicole, I'm sure I'm going to miss people. Tessa is here. Oh my goodness. Laura, first time joining the live stream, but she's been a long time member of the community. It's so good to see you. So good to see you guys. Thank you for being here. So let's do the intro and I will see you on the other side. We have a packed chat today. So Ellen was saying in chat that she's been feeling that way. She's had this feeling for months. So I asked her in chat to tell us more because I want to know. One of the things that I've really noticing lately probably over the last few weeks is this feeling of post-project drift. So I have had a really hard time the last number of years, probably 10 or 15 years, if not longer, describing what this feeling is and what it feels like. And what I've landed on is this feeling of finishing. Usually I need to finish more than just one thing. Usually I need to be clearing off the needles of several projects that have been in progress for a while and coming to the end of something on the loom and finishing some big spinning projects. And then I get this feeling. And I call it post-project drift because it's this feeling of being aloft or being adrift or being untethered. There's all sorts of synonyms that we could use. And I end up feeling quite paralyzed. So I end up feeling like it's really difficult to start something new. It's almost like the brain power that it would take to start something new is just too great. But on the other hand, not starting something doesn't really feel like it's an option. So it's sort of a weird tug of war that goes on. And I wanted to chat about it today because I figure I am probably not the only one, and I have not had a case of this that was this bad for quite a long time. And at the end of March, I just could not face the idea of getting into anything new and doing anything. And I find in those moments what I have to do is literally just be in the moment and be there and accept it and recognize that this too shall pass. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And I think it's really important. Yeah, Ellen says my focus has been non-existent. She's been feeling overwhelmed. I think that's very, very common. I also think we need to take a moment to acknowledge that there is a lot going on in the world, and everybody is being affected by it, and everybody is sort of having to filter this constant stream of things happening in the world, this feeling of sort of this global chaos that's going on. And I think that's really important just in the moment for us as a community to acknowledge that we're filtering a lot and that there's a lot going on. People are very, very concerned. And we're filtering a lot from our politicians, from fellow human beings who are just trying to be human beings to one another. There's sort of seems to be sort of a lack of a lot of empathy. And I think a lot of people are really trying to be there for people and really trying to support one another. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. There is a lot going on in the world, and I think it is totally normal to be feeling quite overwhelmed in this moment in history, just in general anyways. So that aside, I think part of the reason why I was feeling this sort of post-project drift, if you will, or feeling a bit aloft, was these were big projects that I finished and in a relatively short period of time. And then I didn't have that chance to sort of start to plan, okay, what's next? Or even to get some things started so that I already had some stuff started for when those projects finished. And I think that it was sort of one of those sort of perfect storms, if you will, of having a whole bunch of stuff finish all at once and not having some things that were already in progress. And then the bandwidth that it needed to get those new things started just felt completely and totally overwhelming. So let's talk about what I've been doing since that feeling has started to sort of pass. I'm just looking in chat. You guys there's lots and lots going on. I think post book study, I've been there too, just spinning one skein at a time. I think that's often what I do, Rebecca, as well, is I just start spinning like one skein at a time. It's like, hey, what's something that I could do that's like what does Becca call it? Snack spin. Something that's instant gratification, that you get that instant sort of, I've got to finish thing. Wee, right? Getting to the next project is what gets me through a long project. Yes, I hear you, Eve. I think that's, for a lot of us, I think that really resonates. I also think decision fatigue sets in. Kimberly, oh my goodness, yes, that is what I was definitely experiencing. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the show, because instead of having to make one decision for your next project, you have to do it for all your crafts all at once, and all those decisions are hard at the same time. Absolutely, yes, yes, yes. Christine's saying that for her, she thinks that it's to do with the anxiety of starting something new. Will the yarn I'm going to use work? Will my swatch have lied? Will I have enough yarn, etc., etc. And it's funny, Christine, because you say in your comments silly things, but still, I think all those little question marks add up, because that's totally what I was experiencing. So yeah, let's talk about that some more. Oh my gosh, Eve, yes, the never-ending Beaumont. That's from a few years ago, you guys, the never-ending Beaumont. Fionn says, welcome, Fionn. And Kimberly snuck in as well. It's the starting point for me too. I need to plan or swatch or find certain supplies. If it feels like it's too much, I get overwhelmed and end up doing nothing. Absolutely. And that's totally what was happening with me. Okay, so let's take all of these thoughts. Let's put them on hold for just a quick second, because what I did with all of this was exactly what you guys are describing. And I sort of chose a project to begin with that took zero decision making whatsoever, because I had already planned it previously. So let's talk about that first. Okay, so let me just find the fiber here. You guys are gonna swoon. This is from Bramble Ridge, my friend Megan out in Mission. She's about 2 hours from me, eastbound, so heading away from Vancouver further into the province. These are cycling really fast. Let's fix that. Hang on, you guys. Let's make it a bit longer because it's basically the same photo. So this was some Cormo that I picked up the last time that I was at Megan. So I bought this at the same time that I bought remember the spin that was the greens and the pinks from a couple of shows ago? I think it was actually last show, episode 334. I picked this up at the same time. So this is 3 braids of her scruff colorway. And if you don't know the story behind her scruff colorway, it's basically all of the different colors of beards that men can have. So there's reds in there, and blacks and browns and grays and sort of taupey browns, and anything that you can think of that are sort of, you know, hair-like colors. And every single color that you can think of is in these braids. It's really, really pretty. So what I did with these was I actually broke up the 3, I've been doing 1 braid at a time because, like I said, I wanted to make as few decisions as possible. And I really needed to be able to just spin on autopilot. And you guys know that over the years, I have spun so many singles. It's almost not even funny. I've spun so many thousands and thousands of yards of singles. So what I did was I've been taking 1 braid at a time, and all I've been doing is splitting it lengthwise into 4 nests. I haven't pre-drafted, I haven't done anything. And actually from the time that I bought these, this was the plan. I was always gonna spin singles with this. I spun this colorway on the BFL Massam base from Bramble Ridge. It is way too hot in here. I've got to take this off. We're getting such warm weather. It is crazy. I don't want to talk about it because Rebecca will be totes jelly, and then she'll be really upset that she doesn't live here. But I spun this on the BFL Massam colorway, but I made a 4-ply, and I did the crocheted vest. What was it called? Can you guys help me out? The vest that I did back this time last year. What was it called? It was crocheted. There's all the sunburst blocks. Anyhow, I used that yarn in that, and this is one of my most favorite colorways, like of all time. I think this might actually be able to see the colors a bit better. So I stripped this down into 4 nests, and all I've been doing in the evening when we've been home, when there hasn't been soccer, is spinning one of the nests. So I've already got 1 skein finished, and this I did last night. It is ready to go for probably not tonight because I've got Guild tonight, but I will work on it probably tomorrow night. So this is the first skein finished of singles. So you can see how, maybe it's better if I hold it back here. You can see how it comes out very, very striped, very variegated. Those are, quite long stripes of color. I've got some really great photos to show you, so why don't we look at those instead, because they are quite clean and crisp, and you guys can see while I talk to you. So I did something different with the finishing with these singles, so that's why I wanted to talk about this today. I have been chatting with my friend Vivian, who lives in Halifax, which is on literally the other side of the country from me, in Nova Scotia, and she finishes her singles by steaming them, but I don't really have a setup here while we're at my mom's to be able to steam all of the singles. So I was trying to figure out what I could do instead, because I didn't want to full them in the sense of like hot, cold, and I didn't want to risk at all roughing up the outside. I wanted them to stay as absolutely smooth as possible. So what I ended up doing was something I've never done before. I skeined it and tied it in 4 different spots, a little bit more than I normally would. So I tend to tie singles a little bit more anyways. But what I did was every 50 rounds on the skein winder, I wrapped them. I don't know if this is gonna make sense, but basically I ended up with 5. This is over 500 yards, this skein of singles. So you see how I did like figure 8s every 50 turns. So every 50 turns on my 2-yard skein winders is 100 yards. So I thought that was pretty good. And then what I did was I ran a sink full of water that was as hot as humanly possible. I didn't add boiling water like I would for, like, say, washing a ram's fleece, but I did make it as hot as possible. And my mom's hot water is pretty hot. I think it's 100. She sets her hot water tank to 140 or 135. It was really hot. I couldn't put my hands in it. And so then what I did was I added the eucalyptus that I normally would add, because this is 100% Cormo, so very soft, very fine. And then I took the skein and I very gently laid it down on top of the water. And then I used a smooth spoon because I couldn't put my hands in the water. And I just very, very slowly, very carefully, very gently pushed it down into the water slowly in sections. And as the water absorbed into the Cormo, of course, the skein starts to sink and pull itself down. And then I left it. I did not touch it at all. I just left it in the water. I didn't agitate it. I didn't touch it. I didn't move it around. I did nothing because I wanted the outside of the singles to stay as smooth as possible. And then once it had come down from that hot temperature, I let it cool in the water for a couple of hours. I think I left it for about 3 hours in total. And once I could put my hands in the water and it was not quite room temperature, it was still warm-ish, but it was definitely lukewarm. I pulled out the skein and I let as much of the water just run off as possible. And I left one of my ties longer than the others, so that I had something to grab onto, and I lifted it out of the water and I just held it and let the water run off. And then I grabbed a bowl and I put it in the bowl because I couldn't really walk through the house with this like dripping wet skein. And I took it outside and I put it on a clothes hanger and I hung it to dry. And I let the water outside just run off the skein. So I didn't touch it at all. I tried to touch it as little as possible. And I hung it up in the section where I had the tie, where I could hang on to it basically. And I put that around the clothes hanger. And I put it in one of my mom's trellises that she has out back. She's got all these pergolas that my dad built years ago. And I hung it in there so that it could just run off into the ground. And the water kept running off, and it was such a warm day that day that actually it worked really well. It wasn't dry within about 4 or 5 hours, but it was damp dry and it was no longer dripping at all. And so then I touched the skein and I moved it and evened it out a little bit and just very gently pulled on it to just even out the skein in it overall. And it's resulted in like this really, really smooth singles. There's no halo. We'll go back to the main camera for now, but if you look, like there's no halo on it. It's absolutely smooth. And it evened out really nicely, all the twist and everything. There are sections that are a little bit under twisted because it's a little bit thicker, and there's areas that are a little bit thinner, but it'll just add a little bit of texture to the weaving. It's not going to do anything. And so now all I have to do is pull out my Zoom loom and do a little sample to get an idea of what this is going to look like woven. And I'm going to carry on spinning the next two skeins. So a little bit of a journey in terms of finishing these singles and keeping them as smooth as possible. But I'll finish the other two the same way. And then I'll come back to you guys and reflect once I start working on, I'm sorry it's so loud, you guys. I'm not even sure if you guys can hear that. The roadie is pretty good at not picking up background noise, but I'm sure you guys can hear that hum in the background. It's just the yard work. Hopefully they'll be done soon. Oh, the original Agnes. That's right. And then I made the Sunburst Sunflower squares instead. Thank you, Christine, for remembering. I knew it was on the tip of my tongue and I just couldn't think of it. So thank you so much. That's right. The original Agnes vest is done with traditional granny squares, but I used a Sunburst kind of granny square instead that made it more dense and it used more yarn, but it was so pretty. And my squares were the same size, so I could still follow the pattern. Yeah, the weed whacker, Rebecca, that's right. That's what you hear out there. Yeah, so super happy with the singles. Looking forward to finishing the next two skeins. Hopefully that'll be done next time we chat, because that'll be 2 spins for weaving done. And I was going to show you really quickly, actually. This is, we're just going to take a little bit of a deviation for a minute. Oh, actually, or maybe we should save this for, we are going to have a weaving segment today because it has been so long since I talked about my weaving. And I would really like to wax poetic about it so that I can get some momentum back, so that I can get these floral bouquet napkins done. So let's chat about this in a few minutes. But don't let me forget, you guys in chat, to show you and to go back to the other weaving project that I want to do. So I've got 2 weaving projects coming up for the loom after these floral bouquet napkins are done. There's this one. that'll be just singles, warp and weft, probably just something really, really simple, like a point twill, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1 kind of thing. I'm thinking something relatively simple, relatively sort of, I don't even know what the right word would be, sort of, je ne sais quoi. Yeah, simple, something that'll sort of undulate over the fabric, that where the colors match up, you won't really be able to see the pattern, but then where there's a lot of contrast between warp and weft, you'll see it again. Like I've done in the past. I've done this so many times now. But the other one that I may as well tell you now, I'll forget. The other one is the yarn that I shared with you last show, in episode 334. Was this project here. So I had this out this morning and my mom was looking at it and she's like, this is just clever, and which was so nice of her to say, but I've been sticking stickers all through it to cover up the back of the staples. Just so, because I ran my finger through the book the other day and I cut myself. So I was like, oh, I got to do something about that. So this is the other weaving project. I talked about this yarn last show. So if you're curious about the sampling around this yarn and what the story behind it is, please go back to the last episode. This is Bramble Ridge BFL Massam in the Pandora Silk Moth colorway, which was one of the 2025 Advent colors. So with this yarn, I'm actually leaning towards doing an entire like piece of fabric in a basket weave. I haven't done a basket weave since I did my OHS Master Weaver course, the level 1. And I just love what this looks like so much. It's enough texture that it just really shows off the yarn, but it's also like very, very simple. So I might actually design something either using basket weave or canvas weave or like a huck lace, something really, really simple. So that is, these two projects will go on the loom next, whether we're still here at Mom's house or if we've moved back into our house by then. We will see. We're still kind of waiting to find out when we'll be back in our house. Okay, the other thing that I've been working on, I'm so excited to share this with you. So my Charkha. Okay, I have to tell you guys, at the end of March, I started to kind of feel a little bit like, oh goodness gracious, I really need to get spinning on this thing. I need to figure it out. I need to get going with it, etc., etc. And there was this feeling of complete and utter overwhelm. And I remember seeing her going, how the heck am I going to like learn how to use this thing? And then I thought to myself, you know what? You know how to use a Tockley. You know how to spin cotton on your Lendrum double treadle with your extra fast flyer. Like that actually is very enjoyable, and I really love spinning cotton on that. The ratios are like 48 to 1, 36 to 1. So it's like, you know, I know I can do it. And I kind of had a little bit of a pep talk with myself. And next thing you know, after a couple of weeks of daily practice, I have my first skein. I don't know how many yards this is for singles, and I will ply this. I have bobbins from my Lendrum to ply this on, but I have just been, if you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen some of my progress and some of my learning. And if you have seen the unboxing video, there is a little bit more about this on there, but this is by Bosworth Spindles. So to open it, you just undo the latch up here and you open it up like this. And there's some setup that's involved, and there's some video on Instagram, and also there's some shorts on YouTube that I've done about how to do this. But what I've started doing is I actually went through, because I'm recording the spinning cotton course for School of Sweet Georgia back in the winter, I actually have all of my cotton stash with me here at Mom's in a box that I had taken with me to film at Sweet Georgia, and I just never took it back to the house, even though I could have. I just didn't really think about it. So I was going through the box the other day because I've been working on this cotton here, this brown, which is a natural colored brown upland cotton from Cotton Man in North Carolina. And Melissa uses him for a lot of her cotton blends that she does with her bats and whatnot. And this particular brown, I just loved it so much. And it has been a dream to spin. Eve says it goes well with my hair. You're not wrong, Eve. You're absolutely right. I've actually thought about over dyeing this. I need to talk to Dion about that. I've thought about over dyeing it, just like a little bit of it, just to see what I could do, because I have Procyon dyes, and I did some Procyon dyeing in a course that I did with Maiwa here in Vancouver, and it was so satisfying to dye cotton, and you get these beautiful like washed out kind of chalky colors, and I loved it. So I'm going to talk to Dion about that, because you could get some gorgeous colors off of this natural brown. Because once you wash and finish it, if you add a little bit of baking soda to the washing, it goes quite a dark brown, so you could get some just incredible color by dyeing this. You could combine this with a blue and get some really cool dirty greens, and it'd be so cool. Oh, Christine, great. She says, for some reason, I thought the Charkha would be bigger. So this is a book Charkha. It's quite small. I don't have the attaché. The attaché is quite a bit bigger. And this is the accelerator, and this is the drive wheel down here. I'll just shift it slightly so you can see. So this is the drive wheel here, and this is the accelerator, and there's a gear under here that turns. These are slightly shifted from one another. One's up higher than the other. So this is the drive wheel, and this is the accelerator. And on the attaché, the accelerator gives you a ratio of about 140 to 1, whereas this gives you a ratio of about 70 to 1. So what I've been doing before I wind onto my spindle, as I'm spinning, is I go around about 2 to 3 times, depending on the length of the cotton single sitting out in front of me, to give it just that little bit of extra twist before I wind on. So I was going through my stash, and I found this beautiful green. I know it doesn't look green, but just trust me, it is green. After you wash and finish it, this comes out the most beautiful color of avocado green you've ever seen in your entire life. And if you've been for those who are on the School of Sweet Georgia, you guys will see this on that course, because I have some examples of how cotton can change when you change the pH of the water. But this is from Vegan Yarns here in Vancouver, and unfortunately I don't think she carries this anymore, which is really too bad, because it's been really fun to come back to now that I feel more experienced, and now that I feel like I have some skill and have some skill for lack of a better word. Now I'm really enjoying it, and I wish I had bought more. So this once you add a little bit of baking soda to this, it comes out this absolutely beautiful green, like I said. And so I thought, it's only 50 grams. I actually have just shy of 50 grams from sampling and doing all the playing around that I did for the course. When I pulled it back out again, I thought, I'm just going to play with this. My plan is to actually ply this with wool. I'm completely playing copycat to a yarn that Dion did last summer, where she did a singles of wool and a singles of cotton. And this is how short this cotton is, but it's very silky. And if you notice, it's actually quite smooth. And what you can't see in the video is that there is a little bit of texture and a little bit of trash, just a little bit of something in there. So the way that the singles are coming out, and it's just like what it was before when I was first learning how to spin this, but I didn't know what I didn't know. So now that I've got a little bit more experience, I feel like I can approach this with a little bit more confidence. These singles are coming out quite lovely, but like slightly textured. So this is the singles that I spun this morning. I've been doing about, I don't know how many how many yards of singles I can get on a spindle yet. I haven't done those calculations yet. This is probably the 5th or 6th spindle that I've almost filled. This isn't quite filled just yet. Maybe I can put on a little bit more, and but I'll wind this off and figure out what my yardage is, so that I have kind of a general idea of how much I'm spinning over about 15-20 minutes. And yeah, it's hard to see, but this is actually a little bit textured. There's a little bit of sort of surface texture to the singles, but they're so fine that now I'm kind of wondering if maybe I should do 2 singles of cotton and 1 singles of wool to kind of even it out a little bit, or I'll end up with a beautiful flame yarn. So I'll show you some photos of what I've been working on the last few days. So this is my daily practice with the avocado. That's what this green one that I was showing you is called. And I've been really enjoying this one because it's, like I said, it's silkier than the brown. It has a smoothness to it, and it has a fineness to it that it just like, sorry, now there's cotton all over in the air, where it just starts to sort of, as you draft out, it just wants to go thinner and thinner and thinner. And so I have to be really careful to not draft it too much, or I end up with like thread. So, oh, Dion says I have plans for dyeing bast fiber as the weather gets warmer. Ooh, we should have a Zoom party, do a dyeing party together once I'm back in my house, because I'm gonna have a laundry sink now. This was the first time. I was so excited, you guys. You're gonna laugh at me. I was so excited about this. So I set up the Lazy. So the Lazy Kate on the Charkha is this here. Let me just show you. This is the Lazy Kate here where the spindles are held. And then there's a post that lifts up here. I'll just go to the main camera for just a sec. Just bear with me for a sec. For those who've never seen a Charkha before and don't know how they work. This little post here lifts up and down, and they're all a little bit different, and some of them have this and some of them don't. But I think Jonathan Bosworth has really kind of taken a lot of the traditional designs. Apparently he has tons and tons of Charkhas that he's like collected. And I think he's taken them all and kind of perfected them into what he feels works. This little arm here moves to keep the Charkha, these book style Charkhas, from closing on themselves. So it just gives you a little bit, when you're sitting on your lap, it just gives you a little bit of it's almost like a bit of a safety net to not allow the Charkha to close in on itself. It keeps it flat like that. I'd wound it the wrong way. It goes here. And then it stays stuck. Where it's stuck in that open position. And then this is called, like I said, this is the Lazy Kate. He calls this a mouse trap. I've heard this called several different things by different people, but I love the idea of this being a mouse trap. He calls it a mouse trap because it flips down. So just listen. I don't know if the camera will pick up the noise or not, but it's quite loud. Makes that smashing sound. So he calls it a mouse trap, and it looks like a mouse trap. For anybody who's had mice and rat problems, you'll know what they look like, unfortunately. So, and then this is the accelerator, like I said, so this speeds it up, and then this is your drive. And your drive band goes here. Just bear with me here for a sec. While I put this on, you guys, what I am most surprised about, and I know Linda took hers with her up to Rankin Inlet when she visited Rebecca this week, so that they could play around with it. And I think what I am finding most surprising, and my mom was actually asking me about it the other day because I was doing my daily practice. And she was like, you know, how do you find working on that? Are you enjoying it? I am really surprised. Like, full disclosure, I did not think that I would like this as much as I do. I love spinning on this. I may have to start I want to obviously learn more, and I want to try some different things, and I want to try cashmere. I think Dion just said about spinning cashmere. I would love to, play. I've got some Kiviat in my stash at home that Rebecca had gifted me a few years ago that I haven't done anything with yet. I want to try all the short fibers, but I am just loving this practice. I like this more. I know this is heresy. I like this more than support spindling. I just love this so much. So this is what it looks like when it's all set up, and that's your drive band there, and it's quite tight. And there's a little lever in here, this little thing here for the mouse trap to hold it all in place. And then what you do is it's all magnets. But your spindle, I'm going to put this down for a moment because we're not doing the skein winder right now. But the spindle fits into that little hole there, and it literally just pops into place. And then you can turn. So depending on where the drive band is sitting, whether it's facing you open or whether it's facing you closed, so depending on whether it goes around the back or if it goes over and around the front, is whether you have Z twist or S twist. And as you're spinning, you go in the same direction. To wind on, you go backwards just a little bit to allow the singles to move, and then you keep going. And I'll have some video and stuff that I'll start making over the next little while to share in more detail with you guys about all of this. So I was feeling really intimidated by all of this. I was like, how am I gonna get spinning on this? Like I'm not sure that I'm your girl for this. And so once I did get it going and I got all of the brown singles spun and I had 2 full spindles, I had to empty them off. So then I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this thing and I'm sitting in the family room and I was just like, how am I gonna get them off? Like, I know I have to learn how to do this, but you know that overwhelm where you're just like, I don't want to learn any more things. It's just too much. It's too much. I was so sick. So I figured it out. So that is this photo. I'm not going to go ahead and like set all this up, but basically you lift this up and that becomes your guide, your yarn guide for then using your drive wheel here, and your skein winder gets set up here. And I have to admit, it is pretty skookum. It is pretty skookum how that all works. Now closing it has actually been a little bit of a tricky thing. I've actually found it's a little bit difficult to get it right, all the pieces right into the spot that they need to be able to close this. Which sounds kind of funny, but every single time I seem to have a bit of a problem being able to actually close it. And if I don't close it, oh, no, that's not it. If I don't close it, it means that, no, it's not like, it doesn't, I'm gonna have to do it later, but you see how it's like almost closed? There's something that always hits and I can never figure out exactly what it is. And I have to just keep trying until I can get it to close. And I don't want to break anything, but you see how like I can't get it to like fully close? Like it's kind of weird, right? Yeah, I still can't do it. I'm making it worse. Anyways, that's fun. I can't get it. I'll put it off to the side so that it doesn't fall. Okay, so I am basically like in love with this thing and I just want to like spin on this all the time now. So this is my first skein. So this is what it looks like when it's set up as the skein winder. So you put the little metal disc on there, the little armies fit in, and you literally just use your finger and you, because at first I was like, oh, what do you hold on to? But you just put your finger on the actual disc itself and turn it, and it works like it just works beautifully. And then of course this was my first skein that I showed you guys at the beginning of this segment, the little brown cotton. So yeah, I am just loving this. I am really having a good time with it. And I'm enjoying learning something new that feels accessible still, because that was something that was really key. Oh, fun, Rebecca. Look forward to more Charkha content next week. Absolutely. And have lots and lots of fun at the outdoor games. Of course, it's the big festival right now that's happening in Rankin every year. So have fun, you and Linda, and I'm sure the girls are going as well. So have lots of fun. It's like a super small walking wheel minus the walking. Yes, totally, Dion. And one of the other things is like figure out where to sit and figure out like how not to like end up with a super sore left arm. And like there's all these things that I'm having to work through and all these like, you know, problem solving. It's been really cool. I've been really, really, really enjoying on it. So yeah, really cool. Linda, Rebecca's mom, says me too. She's loving it as well. I love, Dion says, I love all the functional upgrades to the Charkha. Yes, he has made some really neat, so I wouldn't call them improvements. They're just sort of like little upgrades, like you said, Dion. And so now I'm really curious to have a traditional Charkha next to this Charkha and sort of be able to compare and contrast. I think that'd be really cool. So I've got lots to ply the brown with, and I'm going to keep going with that project. Just to remind you guys, that was a project that I started when I started preparing for the spinning cotton course on SweetGeorgia. We had covered cotton a lot in the wool and spinning community when they approached me and asked me if I wanted to teach the course for School of SweetGeorgia, and there are affiliate links down below in case you're looking for those, which really do help as instructors for School of SweetGeorgia be paid and to continue to be valued for the work that we do. And when we had covered them quite a number of times in woolen spinning, and so I started to take all that content and put it into sort of a course for SweetGeorgia, right? And I was going through everything and I was looking at everything, and it really felt like a glaringly obvious gap was the Charkha. And so I decided to take the leap and to get one, and I am so glad that I did, but I'm kind of bummed that I didn't get one sooner because I really have been enjoying it. But now the brown cotton was what I had started on for my daily practice to just, you know, continue to fine tune. Cotton is very different from spinning wool, you guys know that. And so what I ended up doing was really kind of honing in on the brown and just spinning bobbin after bobbin after bobbin of the brown. So now I've got quite a few to ply, which is, there's a bobbin right there. This is some of the brown cotton that I've been spinning. This is some of the stuff that's been finished. And it is a bit darker than this, so you can see how much darker it is once it's washed and finished with the baking soda when it changes the pH. We'll talk about that more down the road. But the plan for this brown cotton is a big piece of fabric to sew something. Probably sort of a heavier shirt. It won't be fine enough for like a t-shirt, but something a little bit heavier that's sort of more of like what I would consider like a woven shirt. That's my plan. Yes, Alberto, good point. He said there's no magnets on traditional Charkha. That is so true. Absolutely. And I know Kate Larson uses, she has a couple of things with her. She's really into Charkha spinning as well. And she has a couple of materials that she uses on some of her traditional Charkhas that she's collected over time that's really helped her. So I'm going to read a little bit more about that. There's some really good articles on Spin-Off on the blog about sort of some of those, and start to make a bit of a list of some things to think about if I do come across one that maybe would be helpful in learning a bit more and becoming a little bit more feeling a little bit more comfortable with them, and just, yeah, learning. Christine says an elderly man who used to be a neighbor died last year, and I know he had a Charkha. He used to spin wool. I hope it went to a good home. Oh, I hope so. He also used to make, is it crackle boats? What are those? What are those, Christine? Elaborate. Tell me more. I'm curious. Very cool. All right, why don't we get into finished objects time, because that's always a really fun time, and it's always really neat to talk about all the things to do with finished objects. So let's go to here. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so I wanted to talk first about my Auguste cardigan. It is finished. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's start with my Make 9. So this was my Make 9 for the year, and I'll just move it over ever so slightly so you can see the top corner one there, because I'm in the way. And this was my sort of list, if you will, that I came up with for the beginning of the year. So I've been very gentle with myself. I'm not putting a ton of pressure on myself to have this stuff done like 5 minutes ago. That's always been my je ne sais quoi. It's always been my Achilles heel in the past, is if it's not all done by March, then I failed. And I kept reminding myself this year, like, this is a Make 9 for the entire year. So let's just like put the brakes on a little bit and be a bit more methodical about working through it. So in the top corner here of my Make 9, one of the things that I wanted to finish off was my Auguste. This yarn's been sitting in my stash since last year. I was so excited to work with it. I loved prepping it. I scoured it, washed it, prepped it, did all the things. And I finally got some finished photos of me actually wearing it. So I'll show that to you in a moment. And then the other finished object that I was able to do in the bottom middle there is the half fisherman's rib knit that I wanted to do. This is my spinDecember yarn. I was so excited about this yarn and wanted to work with it right away. I didn't want to put it on put it in my stash and let it kind of get buried under a bunch of stuff. I felt so inspired by the spinDecember this year. It just came right at the right time when I was looking at something. So we'll talk about that because that's one of the finished cardigans behind me. And then the SOS Combo was for the SweetGeorgia Yarns blog. And they published the article yesterday, but it was for spring stash down, spring cleaning, and they included my combo spin that I did. So we'll talk about that last. And I have to admit, this is probably one of my most favorite things that I have made, like, in a very long time. I just loved it. So this is where my Make 9 is sitting right now. I've still got 6 things to go, which is pretty amazing. I did start spinning some more of my toothy. I've got 2 braids of that left to go, and I've got one I just started on my wheel. And then in the top corner there, the floral napkins, they are almost done. I've got about 2 more on the loom, maybe 3, but 2 for sure. And the Romney that's at the bottom there is just needs to be carded. I need to card it up, add the textured bits for the tweed that I need to make the yarn that I want to make with it. So that hopefully is coming up soon. And then the overshot scarves, the Lincoln and Jacob and the Champagne cardigan, those are kind of on hold right now. The Lincoln Jacob cross is from Dion, and I need to get it picked and then carded and processed. I think I have it with me here at Mom's, but I think it's gonna have to wait until we get back in our own home. It's just too messy to pick it here, unless we have some beautiful days and I can sit out in the backyard and do it. But I think if we're back in my mom's, if we're back in our home within the next 5 to 6 weeks, all the crossing of the fingers, then I'll wait and have that done and start that when we move back into our home. So here is the Corriedale. This was the original yarn, the stats, all the things. If you're interested in reading about all of this, you can press pause here and you can have a look, but I've talked about this yarn a lot. So we'll go straight to the finished sweater. So this is the finished sweater. So there are a couple things I wanted to say about it. The first thing is it's quite cropped because I only had a very set amount of yarn, and the leftovers from this sweater literally is this. That's what I have. That's it. That's all I have. I have some of the 2-ply left from the initial sampling, but that's all I have left of the 3-ply. That's it. So to sew on the buttons, I used thread because I didn't have enough yarn left. And actually the buttons look really nice. They're vintage from my mom's button stash. They were probably my grandmother's that she probably bought at Eaton's, which for those of you who've been around long enough will remember Eaton's if you're Canadian. And they have been in the stash forever, and there's only 4 of them, so it's perfect. So yeah, quite cropped, but because I made the sleeves a little bit more with a little bit more ease, it sits really nicely. As soon as I put it on, bless her heart, Nora said, "Oh, I love that," and that really felt good. Yeah, it felt really, really nice. So, and because the sleeves are a bit looser, it doesn't feel tight. It doesn't feel restricting or confining. And because it's cropped, it looks really nice with high-waisted jeans. So I think in the fall, this will get a lot of wear, because even just taking these photos, it wasn't super warm that day. I was sweating. It was so warm. So amazing victory. Yes, yarn chicken victory, Tessa. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. So really happy with how this came out, and really happy to have this done. So, you know, another like completely hand spun from the wash, like I washed the fleece, carded it, prepped it, spun it. Really, really happy with how this came out. And the buttons were a win. The buttons were a win. I love them. The slight glitch, Eve and Ellen, it's because of my mom's internet. There's nothing I can do. She doesn't have the internet that we have at our house. So I am sorry about that, because I know you guys are so used to like such a smooth show. It's just my mom's internet. So look forward to when we're back in our house and it'll all be smooth sailing. So I am sorry about that. The next thing that I wanted to share with you was the spinDecember. So this yarn has kind of been through a lot. This was the yarn and the sweater that I had knit the entire sweater. I had it finished. It was the Terrazzo pullover by Petite Knits. This was when I first started the Seasons Cardigan again. This is the yarn here. I was so, or I still am, so happy with this yarn. It was textured. It didn't stripe. There was lots and lots of beautiful purples coming through in the yarn itself. There was sparkle from those previous Rolags that I threw in at the last minute. Like, it was just everything that spinDecember was supposed to be. And, oh yeah, 100% Christine, absolutely. Yeah, I have to, absolutely. And actually, we'll go back a minute. So Christine says, without wishing to be too personal, bless your heart, Christine, that's so lovely. Do you find you have to adjust sleeves because of the weightlifting you do? Okay, for me, it's not so much the weightlifting, it's because I was a swimmer. So I've talked about this on the show before. I'm a true hourglass in shape, and over the last couple of years, probably since COVID, actually, it's been more than a couple of years, I have gained quite a bit of weight. And I think it's because I'm a lot more active again than I was. Like I'm kind of back to more like what I was doing and how active I was after the kids were born. I've always been very active, but now I'm like even more active, like I'm actively training. So I'm eating a lot more, but I find as soon as I start doing anything like weightlifting, I put on muscle like that. And I get and I think it's from swimming. So I tend to put on a lot of, and it's all muscle, like it's all, I'm quite well defined. But I've got, but I find having that little bit of extra ease in the shoulders and just in the upper arms, especially, it doesn't make me feel, when you put on the cardigan, it doesn't make me feel like I'm having to pull it over my arm. It makes me feel like I'm strong, and I've got some mass behind me because mass moves mass. So, you know, weightlifters do tend to be pretty solid. And it makes me feel good, you know, because you feel like you've made those adjustments knowing that you need that little bit more ease. And when you pull on that sweater, it just, for me anyways, I feel good. I don't feel like I'm trying to like squeeze into a size that I know is maybe a little bit too small, even if it's sort of technically on paper my size, if that makes sense. I often need the upper bust measurement for the body of the sweater, for the yoke, but I need the neck size up for the sleeves and the neck size up for the hips. So that's kind of what I've been doing, and it makes me feel like I can own it in terms of like like how you choose the sizing, which stitch numbers you choose, like the stitch counts that you choose, and just having a little bit more control. And yeah, absolutely, it's the weightlifting for sure. I go right back to that swimmer's physique, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's just years and years of training. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Christine. So this sweater, it's funny, this sweater kind of had a couple of lives, right? And it went through the travel pullover. I pulled it out. I started the Seasons Cardigan. When I first started that, I ripped it out, started again. I had the button band on. We talked about this briefly at last show. And then I pulled the button band off and completely redid it in a different needle size. Maybe I didn't tell you guys about that. Maybe I didn't tell you. So what happened was, if I've already told you, just speak up in chat, but I don't think that I did. What ended up happening was I knit the initial button band here, and it was on the one size smaller needles that I needed. So the body of the sweater was knit on, let me just double check, because I'll tell Porcupine lies otherwise. Yeah, 4mm needles was the body of the sweater. And then when I went to do the button band, I just automatically sized down to 3.5mm needles to do the button band, and it ended up being so dense and so thick because it was 1x1 rib, and the sweater all of a sudden lost all of its drape. So just by giving it that little bit of added structure and sewing it on, which the reason for doing that is to give the sweater a little bit more structure, but because the button band was so dense, the sweater just, you could tell, like even my mom was like, what's going on with that sweater? And she, when it comes to knitting and sweaters and stuff, she has no idea. But even she could tell that there was something wrong. So at this point, I think it was the photo that you guys just saw. It's hard to show in photos how dense something is. Do you know what I mean? Like it's hard to show like, you know, the density of something. Like you can see here, see how like right along, you guys can't see my mouse, but you see how like right along where the row marker is, like you can just see how much smaller and tighter the stitches are. And then you've got that indent, if you will, and then this sort of fisherman's rib that's so light and elastic and so on and so forth. It just completely lost all of its life. And then the button holes weren't where they were supposed to be because I had miscounted. So there was kind of like a perfect storm of all these things. But you can even see here like how the left, I guess it would be your right of the cardigan is like hangs really nicely. But then this side, the left side of the cardigan, do you see how it's kind of cinched up a little bit and it's not quite as, and it kind of curves a little bit? Do you see how it curves at the bottom there, down in the bottom corner here? It just lost all of its life. And the half fisherman's rib is so like, you know, stretchy and forgiving, and it's just got that life to it, right? I think this is why I experienced that a feeling of being aloof after these projects finished because there was just so much decision making. So like the buttons on the Auguste cardigan, going through my mom's stash and trying to find good buttons and not, you know, knowing if I needed to go to the store, and then dealing with the button band on this and trying to figure out about undoing it and redoing it. Like it was just all these little things. So what I ended up doing was I took off the button band and I re-knit it on 3.75. I think I might have even used 4.4 millimeter needles, so US size 6, and then I redid it, and that opened it up and it made it a lot more forgiving, and it flows now, and it's got that looseness to it. It doesn't curl at all, and it doesn't curve in at all, and it just, you know, sits properly. And you can see even here how it just, especially in this photo, you can see how it just moves really nicely. And then I found the most perfect buttons at my local yarn shop at the Woolly Bulldog here in Fort Langley, and they were just perfect. And they were the only ones there. There was 5, I think, on the thing. There was 6 and I needed 5. And I pulled them off the wall, and the lady that was working that day, I think it was Jacqueline. I've met her a couple times. I think her name's Jacqueline. She's like, oh my goodness, those are just so perfect. And I was like, right? Like I walked in, saw them, picked them up, and it was like a done deal. So really happy. Again, I put a lot of ease in the sleeves, and it feels a little bit, they almost feel a little bit like the bell sleeves a little bit. You can really see it in one of the photos. I'll see if I can slow it down. I think it's in one of the first photos where you can really see that little bit of a bell right here. In my left arm, your right, you can see there's that little bit of a bell there. I put in quite a few, I didn't decrease a ton. I only did a couple of decreases at the top, just take a little bit of the bulk out of the sleeve, and then I just knit straight. So I did not follow the pattern, and then cinched it down for the cuff, mostly for the life of the sweater, to preserve the life. And so, came out really nicely, lots of ease. Again, cropped because I only had a certain amount of yarn. And what I have left is this. That's all I have left. I have been cutting it close these days, you guys. Sorry for coughing. This is all I have left. So I'm going to cherish this little bundle because it is left over from the swatching process when I did the initial 10-gram sample. And I just love it so much. And I have the swatch in here somewhere, and I labeled it. So this was the initial swatch, and then I have the little bit of yarn left. And I'll store those and keep those together so that I know exactly what I did for future. Because I am just so pleased with how this spinDecember went. It was just awesome. So Dion, thank you. And I hope that we do it again next year. And I hope more people join in with us next year. Become like an annual thing. And that's what and I think just, again, all of that decision making and finishing it off relatively quickly and having all of that happening all at once. I think I was just like, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm tapped out. That's enough. And then because of the SweetGeorgia stuff and wanting to get my combo spin done, this was the SweetGeorgia Combo Spin. So this is the last finished object, but this was the 3 colorways: Storm Chaser, Snow Angel, and Patchwork Quilt. And what I did with this was I had done a sample where I plied each of the singles together, but my plan was to combo draft this. So this was the yarn that I put through the carder, and I combined the colors so that I had these beautiful nests of fiber. It's all in the blog post on the blog. I'll post it in the Slack channel after we're done, and I'll put it in the show notes so you guys can read it if you're interested. Yeah, it's true, Christine. Actually, leaving the room in the sleeves also gives room for a long sleeve t-shirt underneath in cooler weather. That is such a good point, because actually I have really found sometimes that it's not, I need a rain jacket, but I need something warm underneath. And while we were doing the photos and stuff, I definitely found that like I was needing, like I was getting really warm. So these are the nests and how I did it. I broke it all up. You guys have seen all of this before. I was so inspired by this yarn when it finished. I think this is where I got really burned out, and why I got really burned out was once I plied all of this yarn, it only sat in my stash for a couple of weeks. and I finished this vest, and this might be the most favorite thing I've ever made other than one of my shawls from years ago. I love this vest so much, and I think that's why I got really paralyzed afterwards, because I just poured all of my heart and soul into this, and I literally had it finished in a week. So our last show, the one that we missed because I had to go to a funeral, I almost like did the show on another day just so that I could sit there for an hour and wax poetic about this project. I love it so much. So I think what happened with this is a couple things. The yarn was the exact match for gauge, and the gauge swatch did not lie, which was really nice. I found the buttons at my local yarn shop at the Woolly Bulldog, and they're a little bit too small, but I'm going to go with it regardless. And if I ever find the same buttons but a little bit bigger, I will swap them out because the color is so perfect. And I'll show you a close up in a few minutes. I'll grab it off of my dress form and show you. The fit is perfect because I made it one size bigger. And like I said, I've definitely put on a little bit of weight over the last 6 years. And as soon as I put it on, I was like, I love that this isn't tight. It's comfortable. It feels like something that I've been wearing for years. It just felt really good, and I didn't feel like I was pulling at it or tugging at it or that it was too short or too long or anything. I just put it on and wore it. And I almost wore it to the funeral because I know my friend Jackie, who I was there for her because it was her brother. So my relationship is with her. I only met her brother a couple of times, but I wanted to be there for her. And but it was very, very formal. And so in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't wear it, but I kind of wanted to wear it just to be like, look, Jackie, because here's some sunshine in a really dark day. Because she would have totally appreciated it because it's her colors. But yeah, everything just came out perfectly. So this is called, for those who haven't seen this pattern before, it's called Vest Number 7, Number 7, by My Favorite Things. And she's a European designer. I haven't made any of her patterns before, but I have seen her a ton, and I own a couple of her patterns. I just haven't made them yet. And this was one of them. It took just shy of 1,000 yards of yarn. I think I ended up with... No, that's not true. I had 1,000 yards of yarn. I used about 600 yards of yarn, and it was knit on 3.5 millimeter or US size 4 needles. Yeah, that's right. Is that right? US size 4. Yeah, I did it on 3.5 millimeters. And then for the ribbing came out perfectly. There's a couple of things that I think worked really well with this, and it's going to be a bit counter to some of the things that I've talked about in the past, so just bear with me for a moment. This yarn, I put quite a bit of twist in it. I think it was because I was spinning it relatively quickly. It's Corriedale. The Corriedale comb top can take a lot of twist, but if you put in too much twist, it starts to feel a little bit coarse and a little bit toothy. And for whatever reason, this particular Corriedale, like as I was spinning it and sampling it and stuff, the fabric that I liked and the yarn that I liked when I was doing the ply back test and everything, it just lent itself to being spun a bit firmer. And so that's what I did. So the 3-ply was quite a bit firmer and cinched down and firmer than maybe what I normally would spin and would normally do. So higher twist than usual in the singles, higher twist in the ply than usual. And it meant that the fabric felt, it's not super, super soft. It feels a little bit more like there's a bit of structure there. I personally really love it, but it doesn't have that really soft spun feel. It has a certain firmness to it that I've been leaning more and more toward over the last couple of years. And we've talked about this on the podcast quite a few times, and it all has to do with like durability, stitch definition, having a fabric that's really sturdy and feels a little bit firmer. And so all of that coming together, it meant that the ribbing and the tubular bind off sits absolutely perfectly. It's just got just the right amount of structure, and it's a 3-ply, so it's a bit rounder. That the finishing on it just looks absolutely perfect. I nailed it. Like, it's just perfect. And I think some people would feel the fabric and feel the yarn and be like, oh, it's a bit crisp, it's a bit firm. only slightly, because you can see that there's still drape, like, you know, because of how my hands are in the photo, like you can see in the fabric, there's still drape. There's still movement to the fabric. It's not completely lost, but there is sort of that structure to it, but it sits properly as a result, and the ribbing sits really well as a result. And this really reinforced for me some of these shifts in my thinking over the last couple of years that I've been making. Just very slowly, the more you do, the more you make, the more you sort of realize that, you know, your tastes maybe shift. The nomenclature that was out there and what was sort of seen as rote starts to shift and change. And this definitely brought home for me how important some of these changes are. Yeah, more of a rugged yarn. Yeah, absolutely, Dion. I wouldn't call it like, it's not unpleasant, but it is definitely a little bit firmer. Yeah. Yeah, Kimberly says, thanks for the tip. I might not be that organized, but just take a bag and leave it near my Lazy Kate and throw all the leftovers in there. Yes, do that, and then pull it out at random. Absolutely. And when we get to SpinDecember again in November, we'll start talking about it again and share with you guys how Dion does it, and what worked for me and Rebecca this year, and all that kind of stuff. So this was absolutely a win. And if you guys will sort of bear with me for just a moment, I'll grab the vest itself. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, my Seasons cardigan, let me just move my chair back a bit. My Seasons cardigan, the fabric is really standing up well, because I've actually worn this a couple of times already. And with the sparkle in there and all the texture and whatnot, it's actually, and all the ripping and re-knitting that I did, it's really wearing quite well. And there's, because of the Fisherman's rib, it's sort of like a half brioche. There's no striping, which I really love. So you can't even tell that there's a whole bunch of different skeins in here. It really evened out in the end. And even though I did alternate skeins in the sleeves and the body, it's not overly obvious. Like, there's no striping. That's what I'm trying to say, you guys, is there's no striping. Love this. There's a couple of places where there's some like areas where there's a little bit of texture, a little bit thicker spots, little bits and pieces, but I think it actually works with the overall feel. Like, I think it actually works with the overall like aesthetic of the cardigan. It looks like it should be there, if that makes sense. And I wanted it to be a bit longer. I wish I had a little bit more yarn to make it longer, but regardless, I still love it. Okay, so the vest. So this is when I'm talking about the rib, about the tubular bind off. It is just perfect. It came out so nicely. And the arms, the way that this is constructed, you actually start at the back neck and you build out the shoulders. So you've got these lovely finishing details on the shoulder that just really comes out beautifully. I just love this so much. And then you pick up stitches after you build the back, then you come back and you pick up stitches along here, and then you work your way forward and knit the front of the cardigan. And then once you have your fronts done, and then you attach the back and you work in one piece all the way down, and you measure from the back neck to the end of the cardigan for your length and how long you want to go. And I knit an extra, I think I put an extra inch on this because I just wanted, my torso is quite long. I wanted that little bit extra. Once I had once I had added the front and the back and I was down a couple of inches, I did the rib for the arms right away, because I wanted to try it on and make sure that I was on the right track. But because the arm holes lack structure until you actually put the rib on, I did that. And I just love these so much. It came out so well. So, and then these are the buttons. So freaking cute. I love them so much. And they pick up, the burgundy picks up that patchwork quilt burgundy color in the original fiber. I don't think I had a photo in the slideshow anymore, but the original fiber had this perfect burgundy color. The other color of buttons that I had picked, I had two buttons picked, and I came home because I couldn't decide. They were blue, and they really brought the blue out, but in the end I went with the burgundy because it was more subtle. Yeah, and I just love this. Love it so much. So yeah, isn't that cute? I just think it's awesome. I love this. Yeah. So that's my vest. I'm just gonna catch up on chat really quickly because you guys always have so much to say, and I start to like, you know, lose track. Christine says, I'll be doing a ply-December with leftover hand-spun singles. That's a cool idea. Just keep winding leftover singles all year and then ply them all together. That's a great idea. It's almost like a combo ply instead of a combo, like a combo draft like this. I love that idea. Oh, and actually Christine's earlier comment about the long sleeve shirt underneath, the fact that this is so loose and I have so much ease, it means I can put, actually I could put a long sleeve shirt under, or sometimes what I do is I'll have a tank top underneath and then a long sleeve shirt, and then you could throw this on. And I saw a photo of somebody on Instagram. She has just beautiful tailored clothing that she makes. She's a sewist, but she had a vest and then she had another cardigan over top. It looked really, really smooth, like really good. I really liked it. So you could even put like a sweater over top. Christine says, I'm very into short sleeve sweaters and sleeveless vests and slipovers at the moment. Me too. I just started, I'm not going to talk about it today because we're literally going to run out of time, but I did just start knitting up my Jacob from last year that I blended from, where was it from? Cold Valley Farms, I think, in Wisconsin, and I blended it all together. I just started knitting it into a moon tee. Because I don't have enough yardage for a full sweater, but I definitely, and it's so finely spun. So I'm going to do a t-shirt, a wool t-shirt. Yeah. Wound singles into a 3-ply plying ball in sessions throughout the year, and then I'll ply them. Awesome. Has the picture gone? Oh, sometimes you guys, you just have to refresh too. Sometimes it's internet, it's getting it to you, streaming it, etc., etc. It's all the things. The fiber is Corriedale for the vest. This was all 100% Corriedale. I think this would have been really great too in like a polar silk, because it would have had like even a little bit more drape than this does. This feels very woolly, feels a little bit more structured. The little bit of silk, it would have just draped that little bit. Oh, Amanda, how do you say that though? In German, brioche is called Wohlpatent, and Fisherman's ribbing is called Halbpatent. How do you say those? Like, what's the phonetic sound? Oh, bye, Dion. Have a good appointment. Yeah, super cool. So I'm looking for all the vests right now, and I want to knit all the vests and all the t-shirts. So if we never knit a long sleeve sweater again, that's probably why. All right, the final thing that I wanted to share with you is a little bit of progress on my weaving. I have not talked about weaving for quite a long time, and a lot of it's because these floral bouquet napkins have been going for so long. So let's chat about that next, and we'll talk about sort of this feeling of these long projects and how they kind of leave us feeling. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so with weaving, this project has been going on for a long time, and actually I'll show you the photos while we chat. These are the floral napkins from, they're called the Floral Bouquet napkins. They are from Handwoven Summer of 2025, and I saw this pattern and I just fell in love, which is actually not common for me. I see stuff and I'm like, oh, I really like that. I'll mark it, but I don't start it right away. So I had a little bit of a snafu because I couldn't get the yarn that I needed for them. And it was just gonna be way, way, way too expensive. So what I ended up doing, and this is a great photo to show you guys, what I ended up doing was I substituted the weft. So I ended up the pattern yarn. So I used a cotton, same as what the pattern calls for. I used a 6'2" Maurice Brassard cotton in natural. So it's not bleached white, but it's still, you know, sort of that natural color, you guys know. And so that's my warp and my tabby. So that's the plain weave pick that goes in between. These are overshot. And then I bought 4 colors of 16-2 cotton in the 4 colors that are called for in the pattern. So sort of a denim-y blue color, which you just saw, a rose color, which is that pink right there, the orange, and then I also bought a orange, yellow, oh, and a wine color. And those were the colors that were called for. And then you've got this green going through the whole thing that are meant to be like the stems and meant to be sort of like the plant. And it's meant to be flowers. And I just thought they were so pretty and so delicate and so just lovely. And like I said, I don't normally just start a project like this, but what ended up happening was I wanted to weave at least 5 because when we have family dinners and stuff, there's always 5 of us, my 2 kids, my mom, and my husband and I. And I think what I ended up doing accidentally, because in the back of my mind, I had it that I should probably have 8 or 9 napkins just in case. I think I put on a long enough warp that that's exactly what I did, but I didn't write it down. So when I was doing my initial sampling for these, I just absolutely could not get the set right that worked for this yarn. And this is what the initial sampling looked like. And then I realized afterwards that I had made quite a significant mistake. This is the right side. So the way that the pattern is written, you have these sets of, these are your flowers here. This is the border. And then I skipped a bunch of the green and went straight to the flowers so that I could sort of start to get a sense of like what the flowers would look like. And then when I washed and finished this, I was like, why aren't the flowers square? Why are they so rectangular looking? Well, Rachel, you have to put the tabby in between, don't you? So none of these have tabby in between. So I realized that as soon as I pulled it, like once I started looking at it and examining it. So that was a bit of a, So these aren't exactly what the flowers look like because they do have tabby in between, and having the tabby in between gives them that really delicate look. That's how you get that look is, and of course it squares them as well. So but washed and finished, the fabric, I loved it. This is set at 16 ends per inch, sorry, not 16, 26 ends per inch, 26 picks per inch for the plain weave. But I haven't been really like banging it down and really packing it down. So I'm probably not quite getting 26 ends picks per inch. I'm probably getting closer to like 22 or 23 because I just don't want to really hammer it down. But it's ended up being one of those projects that's just going on and on and on. And I think one of the things that's been a little bit challenging about it is the napkins themselves are about 22 inches long. So they're not that long. But by the time you do the border and you do the hem and you get into the body of the sweater of the napkin itself, and then you do the border at the other end and you do the hem, it just feels like a lot of weaving because it's so fine. And I think because I'd finished all these sweaters, this was the next thing on the docket to get finished. So I was really feeling that loss of projects that were in progress that were already started. And I didn't need any brain power to just pick up the needles and keep going with something like this. But having to go to the loom and pick up where I left off with the shuttles and figuring out like where I was in the pattern, that felt really big. And because I was sick for most of March, Vicky and I, my training partner, we were still trying to train for our 10 kilometer that I was talking about at the beginning of the show. My brain just wasn't braining. Like I just couldn't get my head around how many shuttles do I need to carry? Where do I need to put them? What sequence do they have to go in? I just couldn't do it. So there's also that stage at the end of the sweater making process, for example, and it's the same with weaving where it's very action oriented, right? So you're finishing things like you're getting the buttons and you're sewing them on and you're washing and blocking everything, and that feels really easy sometimes. There's sort of that just get it done mentality because like you want to get photos, you want to get washed and finished, you want to just like, you know, all the things, and it's sort of like then you sit down with another project, you've got to orientate yourself to a new pattern, you've got to figure out where you are, you've got to figure out, you know, if you've got the gauge, you've got to make the gauge swatch, and it feels like it's just a bit too much. And then once all of the finishing is done, for me, I still had this big project on the loom that I still hadn't gotten off, and I still haven't finished my bitmap towels and gotten them all hemmed and whatnot. So I'm starting to feel like my weaving projects are really piling up, if you will. And there's just this rift of like, what's next? You know, do I really want to start a next project? And that feeling of fatigue that was compounded by being sick for most of March. So, because you guys remember last show, I barely had a voice, right? And I was just getting it back and getting over my laryngitis. So all of these things were kind of adding up to a lot of feelings of just like, I'm not sure I can do anymore, and I'm not sure that I want to do anymore. And I think that's really normal, and I think we need to normalize that in our making. And I think that sometimes it's just too much, and we have to just recognize that we are where we are. And what ended up happening was I pulled out my book and I started looking through it. You know, I had put this sample swatch in for the Bramble Ridge weaving that I want to do next. I can't remember if it was Christine or Nicole. I think it was one of you guys, but if you both say it wasn't you, then I'm not sure who it was. Had mentioned when I was showing some of the skeins that I had in mind for some overshot scarves that I wanted to do. One of you had said, why don't you put them together and use them together? So that's been percolating at the back of my mind, because now I've kind of got this project that I want to put on the loom where I'm not going to do overshot after all, but I'm actually going to combine the two skeins and use them together in the same project, because it has all the same colors in both of them, because they're both Bramble Ridge colorways, so it's all the same dye. We've talked about that a lot. And you guys really kind of got me going. And then what I did one afternoon, I sat down at the loom and I made myself sit there and figure out where I was. And now I've been able to get another 3 napkins done. So now I'm feeling like I'm really toward the end. And like I said, I think I've only got a couple left. And then the other thing that I did was, and we're going into knitting here a little bit, but I've had this pattern in my Ravelry queue for quite a long time. And I've attempted to make it before, but it just didn't work out because I had a different gauge and I was trying to do a bunch of math, and it just in the end just didn't work out. But I decided one afternoon to just pull it out. I had gauge and I started the Moon Set Tee. So this is another pattern by Ozetta by Haley Smedley. And this is the tee right here. And it's this t-shirt with a V-neck crossed sort of 1x1 rib collar that you put on after the fact. And because I've knit this before, I knew exactly how the construction goes. And even though I ripped out the last one because the yarn that I chose wasn't quite right, I decided to pull it out and I was like, I could gauge swatch. I could do a gauge swatch. I don't have to do anything else. I could just do a gauge swatch. And that's what I did. So I pulled out my Jacob yarn, and this is the spin from Cold Valley Yarns from Wisconsin, and it was this yarn here, and I carded all of the black and gray and white together. That gave me this really heathered yarn with no striping. It's very, very, very gray. It's very, very fine. And I did a little gauge swatch on 3mm needles, and I just thought it'll be what it'll be. And I just knit it on. The first half is actually 3mm needles down here, and it's a really nice firm fabric. Not dense, but firm. And then this up here is 3.25mm needles. It's incredible how just opening up your fabric by 0.25mm, how much it changes the fabric, because this is it's looser. And I bet you 2 years ago, that's what I would have chosen, because I would think I could choose a slightly looser gauge. I could make something a little bit bigger. I could make a full sweater with long sleeves, etc., etc. And now I'm like, nope, that's not the right fabric. It's the slightly firmer one. I wouldn't want to go any smaller than 3mm. This is about right. But you can see it's just a little bit firmer, whereas this is a little bit looser, a little bit more airy. It's crazy, hey? Just 0.25mm. And so I did that. I washed it, laid it to dry so that it could do what it was going to do. And I cast on for the back. So that is all I have done so far, is the back. That's all I've done. And the reason why this has gone so quickly so far is because working short rows is really, really quick for me. I just did German short rows, just like the pattern called for. I didn't make any modifications. I cast on, I'm just following the pattern, and now I'm working on the back. And I've got another inch, I think, to go, and then I can break the yarn and start working on the front. And like, I needed something that simple to just be able to settle into stockinette, to make a simple decision so that I could focus on the weaving and getting that off the loom. So far, so good. I've been working on this when I go on Tuesday nights to the gym and do my Zone 2 training. I sit on the bike for an hour and just pedal. And there's a couple of ladies that are probably within 10 years of me. And they every week they're like, what are you working on this week? They come together and they're probably like in their early 50s and they're just like so into it. They're like, what are you working on this week? What do you have going on? Are you working on anything new? They always ask me. What happened to the other sweater? They're so cute. I don't think they're knitters. I think they're just tickled that I'm knitting on the bike. But otherwise it won't get done. The Zone 2 will not get done. It's so boring. I'm just sitting there pedaling. So that is what I've been working on for the last 3 weeks. And I am so excited to share with you next week some progress on that sweater. Christine was saying that she thinks she finds herself weighted down because she's got too many craft things on the go, and she forgets that spinning from a bat means blending the fibers into the bat, and weaving means winding the yarn, etc., winding the warp, etc. I think that happens with weaving, especially because with weaving you've got a lot of steps that come with dressing the loom, and it's really easy to get really pre-processed about it and just not get to that point where you can actually do the thing. I think that's really normal. All right, we have been chatting for an hour and a half. I am so happy to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for being here and for taking some time out of your day. Everybody's attention is constantly being pulled in so many different directions, and the fact that you choose to spend it here with me is really great, and I'm so deeply thankful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Filled with gratitude. I would love to hear from you guys how you cope with post-project drift. What are some strategies that you use to deal with it? Do you just let it be and this too shall pass kind of a mentality, or do you actually do something to cope with it? When you feel that post-project drift, or you feel kind of aloof, when you feel it coming on, do you fight it? Do you embrace it? I think this time I really embraced it and I just allowed it to be what it was. I read like 6 books and I just kind of let it be, but I'm not always good at that. So I would love to hear, share down below in the comments, or hop into the Slack channel under #podcast_chat and we can continue that conversation there. Does the yarn not get tangled in the petals? Yes. You're talking about like on the floor loom in the petals, in the treadles. Talk to me about post-project drift over the next week or so. I'd love to hear more, especially because it's something that comes up all the time. You know, it's not something that comes up like once in a blue moon. I think many of us are dealing with it a lot of the time. So please share. All right, you guys, have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Rebecca will be here next week, same time, same place at 11 a.m. Pacific to chat with you all things Wool Circle. That is coming up next week. And until then, if you have any questions or you're wondering about how to navigate things, just reach out to me. I'm always available to help you with your questions and to help you to navigate all the things. So remember to check out the Start Here guide. That'll probably answer some of your questions, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful rest of your month. Bye, everyone.